What's going on, you bunch of heathens? Like I said, I mean, you guys don't know this, but I literally stopped recording on the song, jumped straight into this, so... Like I told you in the last video, I really wanted to jump straight into the history. This is what I've been starting to do, so that way I can get the actual story right off the bat. As always, the original's linked below. Make sure you guys check it out. Let's jump straight in.
I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Joachim from Sabaton.
And this is Sabaton History.
Hell yeah!
Adolf Hitler's rise to power was as unlikely as his rule was catastrophic.
And our song Rise of Evil is quite unusual in the sense that it doesn't cover an armed conflict.
And he's going to tell you about the song, but first,
oh, I didn't even think
about
about that. Dude, I can't wait till we get to the actual history of the song. Can't wait.
Now we're just getting started. We have the power, and we're not going to give it up again. With these prescient words, Adolf Hitler greeted his party members on February 5th, 1933, a few days after he was officially declared the new Chancellor of Germany. The National Socialists, his party, known also as the NSDAP, or the Nazi Party, is now the biggest party in the Reichstag, the parliament, with 33% of the seats. Now, the Communist Party has 16.9%. That means that the conservative center-right and liberal center-left parties, opposed to both the communists and the Nazis, as well as each other, don't have the majority needed to form a government. Instead, under leadership of a conservative and Catholic bloc, many of the mainstream MPs plan to simply control the ambitious Hitler.
Honestly, I don't... I've listened to his Hitler's life. Very, I don't want to say very lot, not really, but there's one podcast that I used to listen to at work all the time. I'd have one headphone in, and I'd just be listening to it throughout the entire fucking workday. What was it? Dictators, I want to say is what it was called. I've mentioned this before a while ago. Really good podcast. They break down the life of dictators throughout history. And they did like a 7 or 8 part series on Hitler. Really good. Like, he breaks down his childhood, everything leading up throughout the war, everything. It's a super interesting listen to if you have like, God, 12 hours to burn or something like that. They also have ones on like Saddam, Pol Pot, God, what's his name? Mao? I think it was Mao. Yeah. Like, really good. Gaddafi was also another good one that I listened to. Like, honestly, if you want to listen to a history podcast that breaks down like big portions of dictators in history, check them out. They're a really good podcast.
When he is chancellor. But Hitler was determined. His goal was to get nothing less than absolute power. He would destroy the parliamentary system, which he very much despised, and establish his Führerdiktatur by any and all means necessary.
Wow. Almost
but to rise
dictator
above the
in
others,
there.
Hitler had to win over the general public, large private interests, and the powerful elements of the government and the military first. His first speech as the Chancellor of the Reich was a roundup of the topics he had unceasingly spoken about since the beginning of his political career in the pubs of Munich after the First World War. But Hitler had perfected the art of public speaking, and he really knew how to...
God, he is not near... You can tell he wasn't hyped up on drugs yet. Like, look how chill he is.
How to paint pictures in the minds of his listeners.
I get that. Sorry, I'm making it... I get that joke. At least I doubt it was a joke, but I'm taking it as one because he was a failed painter.
He spoke of the years of Marxist influence that had ruined the German economy, how the Treaty of Versailles dictated...
But no, he really wasn't animated in that video, like you see later on in his life.
...by the malevolent victors of the war, had left the once glorious German Empire fragmented, and its people impoverished. And as the listeners grew emotional,
God, yeah,
that he would destroy...
That's a big thing. The Treaty of Versailles really fucked over the German people. Like, there was no way in hell they would ever be able to fucking pay any of that debt back. I think I've done I think I've watched a couple videos on it. I'm not positive. I wouldn't be able to tell you which ones, but the Treaty of Versailles really did, like, castrate Germany as a whole.
Destroy Marxism with fire and sword and free Germany from the poisonous class struggle. Under his leadership, German society would find its way back to conservative Christian values and find renewed pride in its past. This turned non-Nazi tacit acceptance of Hitler into actual sympathy, especially from the right end of the political spectrum. However, while Hitler spoke of peace and prosperity to the public, he shifted to a bellicose, threatening, and more sinister tone in more private conversations. Just a few days after becoming chancellor, he met with the highest generals of the Reichswehr, Germany's handicapped army. Germany's future, Hitler insisted, is depending on the Wehrmacht and the Wehrmacht alone. Pacifism was unworthy of Germany's heritage, and according to Hitler's social Darwinistic views, Germany had to fight its way back to great power status. Getting back lost colonies was one idea, but conquering Lebensraum in Europe's east and pursuing a ruthless Germanization was preferable to Hitler and the Nazis. Either way, to be in a position to make demands of the world, Germany's military had to undergo a massive buildup, despite the limitations imposed by the Versailles Treaty. This was exactly what those generals most wanted to hear. A strong
Of course they
military
did.
would
Their military got castrated. They want to build it back up, but they
consequently
weren't
elevate
allowed.
their own positions in German society.
Yep. I shouldn't be nodding along seat with him, but the song is good.
As the next step, Hitler met with another powerful group, the Industrials. Many shareholders of the big companies, such as IG Farben or Krupp, were initially distrustful of
Gustav Krupp von Bohlen and Halbach.
Hitler and his party, especially the word socialist in National Socialist Party. That had a lot of them worried that radical economic changes that would negatively affect them were on the horizon.
Yeah.
Today, in 2019, there is still a debate among historians as to how socialists, the National Socialists, actually work. In terms of social policy, they were on the extreme reactionary right. Opinions vary as to their economic policy, and they likely always will. But one thing was pretty certain about the party back then. The NSDAP was broke. Election campaigns are expensive, and
they are.
The lavish style of the Nazis with all the uniforms, banners, and parades was a real drain on funds. Hitler convinced the Industrials, though, that socialist was a rather flexible term and that their powerful position would go untouched under his rule. Instead, there would be a lot of new contracts for them.
Like, I'm trying to remember nationalist, not nationalist, socialist aspect of it. I believe he does nationalize a lot of the, I can't remember. I want to say this is true, but I'm sure y'all will correct me if I'm wrong. He nationalized a lot of companies, but I believe it was more kind of socialist in the very beginning, the Nazi Party. But they changed it when Hitler started taking more power, and they also kind of kept it to, like, pull people in away from the actual communists, I want to say, maybe. It's been way too long since I watched the actual, or listened to the actual podcast on it, where they go really in depth on everything.
From the armament industry. Again, Hitler's speaking skills transformed suspicious listeners to excited followers. And by the end of the meeting,
he was a great
NSDAP
orator.
coffers were filled with 3 million Reichsmarks. You got to spend money to make money, right?
Yeah.
Now, with the support of both the military and industry, Hitler turned to his internal enemies. He made fellow Nazi Hermann Goering, famous World War I fighter pilot, and in 1933 president of the Reichstag and minister without portfolio, Reichskommissar of the Prussian Department of the Interior and minister-president of Prussia, which meant nothing less than that Goering now commanded both the police and the administration of the Prussian state.
Goering, wasn't he the one who had the baby blue uniform, and they made who was it? It's Sammy Mal. He had the movie on him. I want to say decent enough movie. I enjoyed watching it. I don't know. I want to say he's the one with the baby blue uniform.
And he immediately purged both institutions of enemies of the Nazis and formed the Gestapo, the secret police. The Nazi paramilitary organizations SS, SA, and Stahlhelm now ran rampant, targeting their enemies and settling scores both old and new. Their victims were mostly communists and social democrats at this point.
What? Brown shirts? I know that was a term. I'm not sure if that was a term when they used when he actually had power. But I know when they were just a political party, I want to say they were called the brown shirts that would go out and actually fight people and shit.
But other critics of the Nazis fell prey to the violent mob or to corrupt police officers. They busted up election meetings. They jumped and arrested people on the streets or dragged them out of their homes at night. In the brown barracks, the enemies of the Nazis were brutally beaten, tortured, and often outright killed without consequence for the murderers. It was a brutal terror that swept the Prussian state, but was in fact only an omen of what was to come for the rest of the country once the Nazis got control of the entire government system.
Yeah, brown barracks. Yeah, it's got to be brown shirts then.
Preventing the imminent communist revolution. That actually was believed by large parts of the public, because the danger of the communist threat, the Red Scare, had been hyped by politicians across the spectrum since World War I. The Reichstag fire, the burning of the...
Well, I mean, we've looked into what they did to what the fucking communists did to the fucking royal family of Russia. We saw what they did to them. So, yeah. I'd be fucking worried too. And if you haven't seen those, I believe, God, who was it? Epic History, I want to say, or Extra History. One of those two. We watched the entire video series on it. And what they ended up doing to the fucking family was horrendous. And, yeah. Fucking terrible.
German parliament building on February 27th was just another catalyst to further escalate the violence. To this day, there are those who believe that the Nazis were actually behind the attack on the Reichstag, although there...
I was about to say, was this a false flag?
There is no direct evidence of this. And in his diaries, Joseph Goebbels, Nazi propagandist, and in February 1933, soon-to-be Minister of Propaganda, gives no hints about it. But...
maybe he didn't know.
The lone Dutch communist was captured at the scene, gave Hitler the chance to push the first of many emergency laws through Parliament.
Wow. Yeah, that is very sus. And it does kind of seem like something he would do. A false flag, only one singular Danish communist was caught at giving Hitler the power to push all his reforms that he would want the emergency laws through. I could see why you would believe that it was a what's it called? Fucking blanking. False flag.
Parliament. As a response to the attack, the basic rights of freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom of the press were immediately suspended, as was the power of the individual German states.
Rebuilding an army, make the nation proud, disregarding the treaty, secret plans for Lebensraum, stop the Holocaust, the Reich will rise.
The terror now swept nationwide.
The fucking song paired with the historical footage is just makes it so much darker. Like, you already knew it was a dark story, like, song, But pairing it with historical footage is insane.
As the Gleichschaltung,
Gives it a
co-option
whole
of
new
the
meaning.
interior ministries under Nazi rule took effect under these emergency laws. Bit by bit, the positions in the governments of German cities and states were taken over by Nazi Party members. All police and security forces were by mid-1934 under direct control of the SS, Schutzstaffel, and its leader, Heinrich Himmler. Himmler appoints Theodor Eicke to head up the Dachau camp, and Eicke proceeds to formalize what had been a spontaneously created concentration camp system. An atmosphere of violence and fear gripped every German city in those days, and everyone knew that people could simply disappear and find themselves in the laboratory of violence. That's what the German historian Volker Ulrich called Dachau in those days.
God.
Among those people who disappeared,
Laboratory of violence is fucking crazy. And that is some crazy
were Jews,
propaganda.
the main villains in Hitler's worldview. Now, the takeover by Hitler triggered some rather negative reactions abroad. So the Nazis claim, with no evidence, that this is because Jews are spreading false stories of atrocities committed in Germany. In retaliation for the fictional crimes, on April 1st, 1933, the Nazis called for a nationwide boycott of Jewish stores, doctors, and lawyers. Although the boycott gains little traction and only really lasts for a day, Jews were now the official enemy of the state, and the legal discrimination against Jews was soon followed by physical violence. This was very unpopular with large parts of the general public, but there was no substantial resistance among the people either. Just apathy. The terror had already done its work.
I was about to say, it's the... God, what's the term called when the bystander effect, where, oh, someone else will surely call 911 or something like that? Yeah. But also, what's also the fucking saying goes that hate isn't the opposite of love, it's apathy or something like that.
And the people were...
And honestly, apathy was probably the one of the worst ones of that could happen in that scenario, where they have no feelings towards what's happening instead of hate or love.
Terrified. And the violence and discrimination against the Jews would only increase year by year until the pogroms of Kristallnacht of 1938, when Jews were killed or sent to camps by the thousands, their synagogues burned, their homes, prayer rooms, and graveyards destroyed. Beginning November 1938,
that's horrible.
They are incarcerated simply for being Jews. Back again in 1933, on May 1st, the National Socialist Party celebrated the Tag der Arbeit, Labor Day, as an official holiday with huge parades and tens of thousands of workers listening to Hitler's speeches on the radio. Hitler had promised to reduce the high unemployment rate by gigantic construction projects like the Autobahn. Fairly short-term solution, sure, but the idea worked, and the traditional left-leaning workers put their trust in Hitler. The next day, the last real threat to Nazi rule that could have united large parts of society, the unions, accepted their dissolution without a fight. Instead, the NSDAP had gained over 2 million members in just those 3 months of 1933 alone. And the Nazis had successfully destroyed any opposition to their rule. Everyone who thought Hitler controllable, everyone who thought the Nazis would never gain real power, and everyone who had hesitated to organize a coordinated resistance to the violence was now rendered powerless. The Nazis had taken control over every vital institution in Germany, and they were not about to give up that power. The swastika flew next to the national colors and would soon replace them as the flag of the German Reich. From the very beginning, Hitler had not only been determined to obtain absolute power, but he had also been completely open about his plans. His ambitions, declared in his book Mein Kampf, were by no means a secret, but nearly everybody had underestimated the...
God, that is actually insane that he was very open about what he wanted to do, and no one really took it seriously. He was very open about it.
ruthlessness of the former corporal from Austria. One party, one belief, one conviction, as Goebbels dictated. All other parties must be eradicated, and only the Nazi Party shall remain.
God, I want to headbang to the song, but it's
With
too
Germany
fucking
under his control,
historical footage, which I can't headbang
moved
to.
on to the next phase of his grand vision. His gaze wandered outwards, across the borders drawn in 1919. The Fuhrer looked towards Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Lithuania, to the countries that he saw as bearing the stigma of the Versailles Treaty, nations where a large ethnic German population lived under what Hitler considered foreign rule. Reversing or breaking that treaty was the next step in Hitler's plans, but that would take time to prepare. And until then, Hitler had to rely on bait-and-switch tactics. Dishonesty was his weapon of choice, to test the weakness and the gullibility of the other European powers. While the Wehrmacht was preparing and rebuilding under the swastika, the Fuhrer's plans for the expansion of the Third Reich were set in motion. Hitler was growing ready to wager Germany's future in an all-or-nothing gamble. There would be no 1918 ever again. Germany would return to glory, or it would perish.
No man, no land.
Rise of Evil, just by the nature
Ooh,
of
we're getting
its
into the
subject
history
matter,
of it.
It's got to be a little bit controversial, right? I mean, has that ever
Yeah,
come
you.
to haunt
It's
you?
gotta be.
Yeah, not really haunt us, but it is a controversial subject. It's about how Adolf Hitler came to power. And let's just say the promoters in especially Germany weren't really looking forward to us performing that song live. However,
I can understand
as
that.
soon as we explained to them that, you know, we are a band that sings about military history, controversial subjects will arise from time to time. However,
Yeah, it
we
will.
don't ever do any kind of political or religious propaganda. And this song is simply about how Adolf Hitler came to power.
Well, it's not pro-Nazi. It's telling a story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't really see that distinction, though. So I'm glad they were able to do it, but a lot of people do not see that distinction.
And we can't really tell a story about World War II without somehow including Adolf Hitler or the Nazis.
Yeah, you probably have to mention them once in a while.
Yeah, you have to mention.
Yeah,
them.
you would have
No,
to.
But you have a lot of fans all
Eventually.
over the world, and they're going to be of all different nations and all different backgrounds and all different political figures. You must have extremists from all kinds of
Oh,
stripes, including you must have some fans around there that
there has to be. There's no way there isn't pro-Nazis in the as Sabaton fans, unfortunately. There's no way there isn't. Because they'll see it as pro-them. When it isn't, it's telling a fucking story.
are pro-Nazi. That's going to happen just by the number of fans you have.
Yeah, I mean, we've been accused of being almost everything because we cover so many subjects for so many different points of view. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say this, but I don't actually give a shit what people who listen to us think.
Right.
I don't give a shit about the religion, the color of their skin, or anything. Everything is fine. But please, you know, consider it like genitals. It's okay to have, but don't whip them out in public.
Okay.
So
You hear that, Tommy?
I was about to say, I like that. I mean, being pro-Nazi, I don't think is okay, but it's your opinion. I can't fucking change it. It's whatever. But yeah, everyone has. It's like assholes. Everyone has them. Don't fucking blare them. Don't fucking show them out in public. I like that. You do you. I like that sentiment though. You do you. Don't fucking show up to this shit trying to fucking push your shit on me, or show it, or like yeah. I
so
like
it's
that.
like all we care about is we don't want our music in any way used for political or religious reasons. We don't want to compromise on our neutrality. We want to be able to tell stories from all kinds of views. Not
I like
by
that,
judging
yeah.
what's wrong or right, but simply because we find that way of telling the story the most interesting one. But we do know we're
Yeah, that's their trying to think on how I would say this. That's their medium of telling stories is through music. And yeah, I understand that.
into minefields sometimes.
Sure.
That's a good example also with doing the whole Carolus Rex album. Doing
Yes,
it in
y'all were
Swedish
telling-
as well, because
Y'all were telling me about that it was taken by the far right in Sweden, I believe is what y'all said.
In many ways, that is considered extreme right-wing in Sweden. We've been called communists as well because of doing the Songatero Dominatus about the final battle of Berlin.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can keep accusing us of our political views, but the simple fact is we don't really have any message.
Not in the music.
Other than to tell these stories.
Yeah, in the music.
I
no.
think that was very
I like that, yeah. There's no political message in the music. It's we're telling the story of what happened.
very well said. Well, that is it for today for Sabaton History.
Oh. That seemed so short for the history section. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. They can't really go... They probably don't want to go super heavy into it because of the topic, but... I guess it seems like they'd stop them, really.
All right, everyone. Remember to support us on Patreon. Check out the other videos we got.
I really
They're
like
good.
this.
And also,
They are
don't
good.
forget Time Ghost and World War II. Take care, everyone.
You as well. Damn, that was good. Make sure you guys check out the original. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Make sure you guys take care of yourselves. See ya.